This is the very trap and mudslide into which generations of parents, starting from ours, we started the school about 20 years back now, 21 years, right? Generations of parents are slipping in and pulling along the children. And thereby, somewhere we are raising youth, which is a little bit insensitive. A lot of times we're coming across arrogant, self-centered, irreverent, fragile, uncontrollable youth. Of course, this is overgeneralization. I'm not talking about every single person turns out like that, but I'm talking about a large majority, right? And even if I consciously wish to put away this cynicism, these cute little kids who came and spoke to you, the pre-primary presenters, starting out so innocent and so beautiful. We have the privilege of witnessing what happens to them stage after stage after stage after stage until the time they have actually passed out of school and grown into young men and women. And from that experience, I thought it's the right time to speak to you is now. I know it sounds rather negative and cynical to be talking to young couples, young parents about what might happen 20 years later. But I think this is really very, very important for us to understand how is it that all our great intentions are sometimes boomeranging, are turning into something else. Now, we raise them as a center of our universe, hoping that one day they will treat us as a center of their universe. But that doesn't happen. What happens is that they truly begin to believe that they have to be the center of everyone's universe. And that assumption carries on when they become husbands and wives, each one thinking they are the center of universe, okay? That continues at workplace, that continues, that kind of, even at workplace, they expect to be treated as royalty. And in every relationship, they see themselves as more important than the other person, even when it comes to you in the old age. And what really happens more easily then is breakups than bonds, It is very, very late in the day we realize when these can't see beyond themselves kind of adults stare at our face who wouldn't budge from the Netflix show even when you need help, at home, or they would lock themselves in their room even when the guests have entered. Then we wonder that how could we have taught them to care for others, to be giving, to be accommodating, tolerant, to have the ability to sacrifice little small pleasures for the sake of others. But this realization comes in only when they are turning 15, 16. Sometimes these days 12, 13. You begin to see something that hasn't gone into their system. We all color our hair, but the fact is we are aging. And the first few batches of preschoolers with whom we started, they are now young adults into the workforce, some of them married, that's how old we are. And when we sit in our chair and we're interviewing people these days for fresh recruitments as teachers, you're actually interviewing the same age group. You suddenly realize, oh, these are 95 bonds, and that's like this batch or that batch. And what you commonly find, which is very common in this generation, is they come with a victim attitude. They're already feeling very sorry about themselves. They would come with the attitude of, like, can't you see life is happening to me? I get so tired. How can I do so much? It's too much work. Can we not get help to correct notebooks? Can we not have another person recruited to correct notebooks? That's the kind of attitude with which you see the new generations coming in. And sometimes we stand there shocked and surprised at what happened to the good old generation of ours. We could do this much and more, and we never felt entitled to ask anybody to do what we thought was our basic job. So somewhere we've created some whiners and people whose capacities are shrinking, rather than expanding. And how did this happen? What did we do to make this happen? And we don't realize, but with all the protection and safety that we provide them, fighting battles from them right from the early years, we're pumping into our little emperors the notion that the world owes them good treatment. And we also model to them this victim mentality every time we are blaming the government and blaming this one and blaming everyone else. I'll give you a small example. So very often the children will come home and tell you things like, today my teacher made me write in silence and I was feeling very sad. Now, how we respond to this determines what they'll grow out to be, right? And how would we respond to this? Today my teacher made me write in silence and I was feeling very sad. So, one of the responses is, why? You should have told your teacher. She can't do that. Okay, I'll speak to your teacher. She shouldn't do this next time. Yeah? Sounds okay? No, there's a catch. But there's the other way of responding. And the other way of responding, when the child comes and tells you, my teacher made me write in silence and I felt very sad, you say, oh my God, what could you have done, my son, to avoid that? Is there something you could have done to get it, to avoid getting into that situation? Or for example, a child comes and says, today this boy snatched my tiffin or my sandwich, in the bus. I don't want to go in the bus again. So one of the ways of responding is, oh my God, that boy is really harassing you. You must tell the teacher and I will also write a mail. And the other way of responding is, you snatch his. Yes, that's another trap. Correct, that also happens. Okay, but the other way of responding could be that, oh my God, do you think he was hungry or he was so tempted by your sandwich? Is there any way you can teach this boy to ask and not snatch the next time? And what we are doing if we respond like this, is we are teaching the children to take responsibility and to see that there is something in every situation they can do. There are some things that are always in your control. You may not be able to control the entire situation, but there's something you can always do about a situation. And since we haven't taught that to kids, we're getting the kind of people we're getting. And it's very, very difficult to teach them now at this stage. Honestly, if we put the ball back in their court, we would be raising children who are more ready for better jobs and better relationships in life. One more thing that we come across is that a lot of these youngsters, they would very casually say that, I visit the psychiatrist because I have really been experiencing anxiety or depression, and it's becoming like blood pressure. It's every second person seems to be thinking, that's okay, it's normal. I have anxiety, I have depression, and therefore, and these are youngsters I'm talking about. Why did that happen? How did that happen, I wonder, because when we started school 20 years back, we thought we got to pour out all the love that's there in the world to these children and magic's going to happen, right? And what we realize is that, our constant attempt to give them perfect environment, perfect situations, and expect perfection from them These are both responsible for the kind of anxious, fearful, and depressed individuals we are raising. There are people, dealing with mental health issues. And it's because there are children, it's not unusual. I mean, you can ask anyone, and I'm sure you know as parents that the child gets an A on the worksheet and starts howling because it's not A+, and my parents are going to be very upset. Or people, they can't match the perfect image of a perfect life that they have from media and from social media, that life is so good to everyone else. When their fantasy doesn't match the reality, they are just depressed. If the cake on their plate is not looking as pretty as the cake on the Facebook page, it can be depressing, right? So, the irony is that we as human beings, we see it all around us day in and day out. We know that life is a dichotomy. There is no joy without sorrow. There is no success without failure. There is no pleasure without pain. Still, we want to give our children only joy, only success, only pleasure. And we are just forgetting and trying not to prepare them for pain, for sorrow, for failure. Then how can we expect to raise balanced individuals? Isn't that a classic error we are doing with all our love and good intentions? Yes? I read something very interesting. There's this book by Gary Zukav, and he says, in school we all learned about the theory of evolution, and theory of evolution says that, single-celled creature of the ocean was the predecessor of all of us. From there came more complex human, life forms, and then more complex life forms. So a fish is more complex than, let's say, a sponge, or a horse is more complex than a snake, and then a monkey is more complex than a horse, and finally so on and so forth. Human being is the most complex, right? We're the most evolved life form on this planet. If you take this evolution further, and you have two individuals who are equally intelligent, right? But one is more magnanimous and altruistic, and the other one is mean and selfish and nasty. We normally would say that this person is more evolved. Who? The magnanimous one. Or if there is someone who is sacrificing his life for some other human being intentionally, not accidentally, then we say, this person is more evolved, right? So, our deepest understanding tells us that a truly evolved being is the one who values others than it values itself. A truly evolved being is someone who values love more than the physical world and things in it. And the key ingredient to becoming this evolved is the attitude of reverence. We all behave the way, as per our attitude. If you are an angry person, you will deal with the difficulties in your life with anger. But if you're an angry person who's dealing with difficulties with anger but has reverence, okay, you will deal with it differently than an angry person without reverence. An angry person without reverence will probably have no second thought in hurting another life. But a person with reverence, the angry person with reverence, will probably stop at an angry word. So one of the very important things to teach to be an evolved human being is reverence, regard, respect for others. And it's very, very surprising that we see all this around us, yet we are not making it our mission as a parent to teach our child to be reverent. Come what may, just be reverent for everyone and anyone. We're not making it a mission to teach them to value others before themselves. We're doing exactly the opposite. We are not making it a mission to teach them to value love above everything else. So there's this boy who says, I'm going to get guests at home. I said, wow, that's lovely. You're going to get guests at home. That's fun. So you'll have some good time. He says, yeah, but my mom's saying we got to lock everything. So the message we are giving is different. This is a child who's going to grow up not trusting the world. He's going to grow up valuing things more than people. So, surprisingly, the most evolved species, the human species, is the only one who creates problems for themselves and for others, and that's what the show today is about. Right? I would just want to give a small message that, I've listed you all the sorrowful story, so far, painted a sad picture. But the remedy is pretty simple. And the simple remedy is, make it your mission to make your children, world ready.
Happy.
A good human being.
No. To make your children reverent, not necessarily happy. To make your children value others before self. To make your children value love. To make them embrace failure, sorrow, pain as delightfully as they embrace success and joy. And just do less. Less pampering, less provisions, less protection, less perfection. Less perfection. That's it. And we'll have some good crop there. Thank you.